Hey everybody, welcome back to Herdwatching. This is part 2. Go ahead and take a look at part 1 of our discussion of the Mueller investigation and what led up to it, Obama's presidency, Hillary Clinton, sort of that takeover of the mechanisms of the U.S. government in a way to, I know it sounds like a Tom Clancy novel, but when you actually look at what was going on, the idea really is to, create a sort of left-controlled hegemony over the U.S. government for the foreseeable future in exactly the same way, for exactly the same reason, and by basically the same types of people that you see doing that in Europe, in the European Union, where they're, basically just, they get into power a little bit, and then they're just sort of expanding it, so that the ability of people to kind of vote them out of office becomes not only practically impossible, but in some cases essentially legally impossible. So now here they are. Now for 8 years, Barack Obama's sort of been putting his thumb on the scale of the government. Hillary Clinton has been doing what Hillary Clinton's been doing, making a whole bunch of money, making deals, consolidating power, being as corrupt as Hillary Clinton has ever been corrupt. Barack Obama, I don't think, is corrupt in the sense that he's taking money. I think Obama is corrupt in the sense that he's willing to destroy the institutions of the republic in pursuit of this vision he's been raised with all his life of a sort of, elitist-run utopia. I don't really know whether Obama's a hardcore leftist personally. Very few of these people, these elitists, actually really believe the sort of idiocy they espouse about left-wing views and, collectivism and whatever. They're really just in it for the power and the control. And talking about left-wing ideals is the easiest way to get a lot of people to hand you a bunch of power because, nothing says give me power like I'm going to go take everything from the people you envy and give it to you. It's the long-standing tradition, right? So, in any case, but the unthinkable has now happened. Donald Trump has won the GOP nomination, and that's the one thing nobody expected on either the GOP side or the DNC. Now, thankfully, the GOP has just enough internal integrity left, just barely enough gasping and wheezing its way forward that when Trump does win, they actually go with it instead of doing what the DNC would have done and did do, which is just throw their own rules and process out the window and shut Trump down sort of by acclamation. The GOP has just enough integrity left that when Trump is the nominee, they get it together. And that little bit of integrity is what will wind up having literally saved the republic in the end. So Trump becomes the nominee, and then with no help of the GOP at all, just because Trump is a brilliant politician, strategist, and tactician, Donald Trump becomes the president of the United States. And all during this time, what we know is that Hillary Clinton is in bed with the Soviets, all up and down the line. She's deeply involved with the Russians. People in the DNC are deeply involved with the Chinese. And this plan is hatched because something horrible has happened while Donald Trump was on his way to the presidency. And that horrible thing is that an insider, Seth Rich, leaked an enormous amount of internal information from the DNC to WikiLeaks. Because Seth Rich, who's a dyed-in-the-wool, I believe leftist, realizes that the Democratic Party has been hijacked by these elitists. So he goes and turns over a lot of incredibly damaging evidence. And the DNC is scrambling. They can't let the FBI take control of their servers to deal with it. So what do? They use the corrupt DOJ's influence to sort of launch this investigation without ever having to really look at their servers. And they see an opportunity. Because the media is in their pocket, because of this sort of ridiculous credulity with which they treated a joke by Donald Trump, they've created this illusion that Donald Trump asked the Russians to hack the DNC And now they can pin it all on the Russians, hide the Seth Rich problem, and cast doubt on any information that comes out. And you see them do exactly that. They try and go, you can't trust anything you'll hear. It's the Russians, it's the Russians, it's the Russians. And now, because they own the FBI and the DOJ, another opportunity arrives. They can now go back and justify the spying and surveillance that the Obama DOJ has been doing on, as it's becoming more and more clear, all of the RNC political candidates. It looks like this is much wider than Donald Trump, and that Barack Obama has been using the FBI and the intelligence community to gain opposition research on anyone the GOP might come up with. And now there's this opportunity, this golden moment, where you can cast doubt on all the information that's about to come out from the DNC servers, cast doubt on Donald Trump, and reverse retcon, the comic book geeks would say, reverse justify all of this spying. And all you have to do is find somebody, anybody, to manufacture a probable cause. And here comes Hillary Clinton's lawyers through this guy Steele, and they sort of convince part of the British government to go along with it because Hillary Clinton's been doing this dance for a while. The British government's under pressure from the EU. They don't really think Trump is going to win. They want Hillary Clinton to be their friend, so they sort of belatedly, half-heartedly hand this dossier over to our government, and we are off and running. Now, all the little boxes have been checked. Plausible deniability is in the bag, and off we go, seeing if we can find a way to destroy the Trump candidacy, because surely with enough surveillance, we will find the smoking gun we need of something. And sadly, no. That's just very interesting. The gimbal that the camera is mounted on is reacting to the angles that the car is on, but holding the shot technically level. So this sort of weird angle that you're seeing in the shot is, let's center that up and see if we can sort of, that's like level with the real world, not level with the road I'm on. Anyway, sorry for the like Batman villain-esque Dutch angles in the back. You'll just have to live with it. So anyway, we're off to the races. But then, even biggest calamity of all, Donald Trump actually gets elected. He survives this process, gets elected. The manipulation of the U.S. government by Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and the DNC is not yet so complete that they can just sort of by fiat waive the results of a presidential election. And Donald Trump is steadfastly, unlike most GOP people, refusing to come to heel when threatened. So you have to lean into this thing, and we have to try and find a way to cause doubt, to cast doubt on Donald Trump for 4 years, because here's a man who now has the power to undo what we've done. It'll take him time, but he can unravel the damage at the FBI, he can unravel the damage at the DOJ. Eventually, you're going to have to give him security clearance to the very stuff that you've been trying to hide. So you get busy, you destroy as much as you can, and we saw that where the FBI destroyed a whole bunch of, for instance, a whole bunch of the text between Strzok and his little girl toy. You start shoveling as much evidence on the fire as you can. You cause as much chaos in the transition as you can possibly manage. In the meantime, you launch this faux investigation to try and delegitimize the presidency, and you hope that you can hang on by your fingernails until 2018, when you can at least take back enough power to survive the rest of the Trump presidency. And thanks to the weakness and spinelessness of the GOP and the never Trumpers, you pull it off. And then you manage to hold on and pin all your hopes on the Mueller investigation. The problem is he pumps away and comes up dry. No smoking gun. Despite all of your attempts at entrapment, despite all of your dangling of bait, despite all of the money you're offering, the Trump team just didn't cross the line in any significant way. Yeah, you got some low-level staffers, and you've got any number of these people for various tax evasions, and you crawl through their life with a stethoscope, and you get a couple people to roll, because that's just sort of the way power is when you can have infinite prosecutorial discretion. But in the end, you don't come up with enough to force Trump to resign. And then finally, having destroyed the FBI, having destroyed the DOJ, having destroyed what remains of the reputation of your pet pit bull, Robert Mueller, with his last gasp in public life, he drags himself to a microphone, and with the same look in his eyes that you see beaten Vietnam veteran, Vietnam-era prisoners of war who finally confessed, he trots out and gives you the last little bit you need to go full tilt on impeachment, because at this point, you're in way too deep to let this go. You can't let it return to normalcy, because Donald Trump has done the other thing. He's launching investigations of his own. He's not just going to let this go. It's amazing. Having survived, he's not doing what you were no doubt urging him to do and just crawl away with his tail between his legs, count himself lucky for having survived. They offered him a deal. Finish out your term, resign, having done what you wanted to do, we'll back off on the prosecutions, and you give us the presidency the way it was always supposed to be, and we'll let you off the hook. But nope, Trump's not having any part of that either. It's amazing. And when you look back at the headlines through the lens, when you see that CNN and them are basically one of the ways the DNC communicates with their victims, you can see it when the DNC is trying to offer Donald Trump a deal. What happens? You get a bunch of talking heads talking about how, well, having secured this victory, Donald Trump might now be thinking about retiring while he can go out a hero. And that's what you're doing. You're trying to lay out this scenario to him. You're like, hey, we can get the media on board. We can sell this to the American people. You can go out as a MAGA hero. We'll let it happen. And then when he turns down that deal, you see the same talking heads like the very next day. Oh, Donald Trump, too egotistical to go out as a hero. He's going to, force himself to be beaten and go out as a broken shell of a man. And that's the stick to their carrot. And we're watching this play out. And now we're at the point where the Mueller report is defanged, where the DNC has to actually just come out and try and impeach Donald Trump because they don't like him. The country is fatigued. It's starting to become clear how viciously abusive this investigation was. And now, from now on, every day, the forces arrayed against him get weaker, and Donald Trump now has more and more ability to declassify information and move forward. Will he be able to gather enough strength and undo enough damage to win the election in 2020? It's hard to say. This could go either way. It always was lightning in a bottle. It always was a miracle that Donald Trump became president at all. Decades of political machination came to a head in Barack Obama, and the destiny of Hillary Clinton was written. Do I think Donald Trump is able to single-handedly pull the nation back from the brink that way? I don't know, but he's given it a good run. And a lot of this is going to depend on whether the GOP can reach deep down inside and find any semblance of a spine or a sack and get behind this guy finally and try and save the republic. Because what will happen if Donald Trump is not reelected is a Democrat will get in power, and they have already shown that they vowed to never let such a thing happen again. In the name of electoral security, they will destroy the democratic process. And in the name of preserving our elections from outside influence, they will empower Facebook and Google and Twitter, and you will see social media not be shut down, but be just so sanitized and slanted that between the bias in the education system, the legal system, attacking anyone who's against them, a re-weaponized IRS, and an FBI firmly in the hands of a group of people who truly believe that a global government is the answer and that democracy is a failed experiment, that could be the end of the American Republic. And you can, talk about that being hyperbolic, but, it was always going to end somewhere along the line. And our founding fathers saw fit to give us enough guns that it probably won't have ended by an armed communist insurrection. But in exactly the same way the EU has basically destroyed democracy in Europe, you could see the effective end of democracy in America. It's not too strong a point to say Donald Trump saved us. Whether we can carry that forward and continue to be saved, I couldn't tell you, but I'm hopeful. All right, guys, talk to you later. I hope you enjoyed these 2 videos. It's looking like we're at like 32, 35 minutes all told, which is a lot of talking. Let me know what you think down in the comments if we're somewhere where we can comment. Feel free to find me on Gab and Minds and Dissenter. Stay tuned. Talk to you later.